Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so very much for this wonderful Sabbath day, and now we have come to the part of the day that I've been looking forward to quite a lot. So we ask that you will bless me as I tell this story, help me to do it well, bless the kids as they listen, help them to get the things that we need to learn out of it. And thank you for your love. Amen. Big Mo had heard the sound right outside his house, or maybe a little ways down the road, heading back towards the village, and he grabbed a fiery branch from his fireplace and went out, and as he looked with the light of the fire gleaming and glittering, he could see there was some animals struggling. There were snarling sounds. It was dogs, wild dogs. There were many dogs that would wander the roads at night, and they were fighting over something. It looked like there was a bundle or a package or something that they were tugging back and forth, and then Big Mo heard the sound coming from the package, and it was the sound he had heard. And now he knew for sure that was a baby in there. That was a baby the dogs were fighting over, and Big Mo came running down the hill with that big torch in his mighty hand, and he took the muscles in his arm and he began to swing that torch back and forth, smacking the dogs, kicking at the dogs, and even though they were fierce, and even though there was a whole pack of them, they could not stand up to Big Mo, and they dropped the bundle and ran off into the jungle. Big Mo picked up the bundle and quickly unwrapped it, and as he unwrapped it, he remembered what had happened the last time he'd unwrapped a bundle like this. Just a day or two before, he had unwrapped a bundle that had burned his hands as he had taken it out of the fire, and when he had opened it, the baby inside had already been dead. But do you know, this one was not dead. This baby was alive, but it wasn't in very good shape. You can imagine, after having been dragged and fought over by dogs, this baby was scared, it was crying, it was screaming, and it was injured, it was wounded. It had scratches and scrapes. It didn't seem like the dogs had bitten it, but it had big scratches all up its back, as if it had been dragged across the ground by the dogs as they were running around, pulling the bundle. The baby cried and cried, and Big Mo had never held a baby before. He really didn't know what to do or how to solve the problem, but as he saw its wounds, he thought, okay, what do I do when my hands hurt? I put oil on them. That helps. I'll take her up to my house and I'll put oil on her wounds. He ran back up to the house. He unwrapped the baby completely from the bundle cloth, and he gently as someone with big mighty hands and big muscles like Big Mo, he carefully dipped oil and rubbed it on her back, and it seemed to help. The baby stopped crying, or at least the volume of her crying got lower for a little while. It seemed like it was soothing her, but then she started to cry again. And now it didn't seem like the same cry. Now it was a cry that, well, if any of you have ever had a younger brother or sister, and it's past their meal time, you've probably heard that kind of cry. And Big Mo didn't know what to do, because he could tell this baby was hungry, but what do you feed a baby? Well, he looked around. What do I have in my house, thought Big Mo. He thought to himself, I've got rice in my pot. Okay. Oh no, this baby doesn't have teeth. There's no way that I could feed it rice. What else? But maybe something else made from rice. In this pot I have rice whiskey. No, that's probably not a good choice. I'm not going to give the baby alcohol. What else do I have? Oh, in this jar. Oh, but this isn't one of the jars of the cow's milk that I take to sell in the village. Maybe the baby would drink that, and yeah, that could work. So Big Mo made a mixture. He took some milk, he added in a little bit of honey, he added in a little bit of water, and he mixed it up. And then he didn't have anything like a baby bottle at all, so he thought a little bit, and then he got creative. He took one of the milk straining cloths that he would use to strain any kind of bugs or dirt out of the milk after he would milk his cows. He took one of the clean ones, he dipped the corner in his mixture of milk and water and honey, and then he just kind of squeezed it over the baby's mouth, and he didn't have very good aim. Some of it landed in her eyes, and she would kind of sputter. But then some landed in her mouth, and do you know, for the first time since Mo had met this little baby, she stopped crying. And she just looked, and her eyes got big, and he thought, I've done it, this is exactly right. And he just started squeezing drops of milk, water, and honey into her mouth, and pretty soon, her eyes started to get kind of heavy, and then pretty soon, she was fast asleep. And Big Mo looked, and the blanket she'd come in was way too dirty and torn, and had dog drool on it. There's no way he would use it to wrap her up. So he took another one of his milk straining cloths, another nice clean one, and he wrapped her up, and then he sat back on the porch to look at the moon and think about what had just happened. Why did he have a baby all of a sudden? how did this happen? You remember that in Big Mo's village, in Big Mo's country, in Big Mo's part of the world, the people believe that if anything bad happens, it's evil spirits that do it to you. But if something good happens, then maybe those spirits are happy with you. Maybe they like you for a little while. And Big Mo started thinking, it must be the spirits are happy with me. Maybe it's because I put some flowers under the spirit tree. You guys remember the spirit tree? Oh, it's a big, ugly-looking old thing that's halfway between Big Mo's house and the village, going on the path down the hill. And people will leave gifts there to try to convince the spirits, please don't be angry with me, please treat me nicely. That's how they think they have to convince these spirits to treat them well. And he was thinking, maybe it's because I left those flowers there. Maybe it's because I beat Big Thou. I don't know. But for some reason, maybe the spirits are happy with me, and that's why they sent a baby. But should I keep it? I mean, where did it come from? Maybe I missed, maybe there'd been another funeral. Maybe there'd been another pyre, and a mommy had been burned, and maybe this baby was on it, and like the dogs maybe came and like grabbed the bundle and ran off with the baby. No, but the dogs would have been scared of the fire. That doesn't quite make sense either. Big Mo thought and wondered, but he realized as he was sitting there, holding the sleeping baby in his arms and watching the moon, he wasn't feeling lonely anymore. Which was a wonderful feeling because Big Mo had felt lonely most of his life. And when he would get drunk on the rice whiskey, he'd feel even lonelier. He would just think, like, nobody really loves me and I'm all by myself. And now, he didn't feel that way. Big Mo did not drink any more of the rice whiskey that night. He went inside, he laid the baby down carefully in one corner of his hut, and he went to sleep as well. And the next morning, she was still sleeping, and he went over and he just kind of knelt by her, and he didn't really know, what do you do with a sleeping baby? He kind of wanted to hold her, but he didn't want to wake her up. And so he kind of just awkwardly laid down kind of next to her and looked and watched her breathing. He'd never watched a baby breathe before. It was just so soft and so fragile. Big Mo was used to strong things, like his mighty arms and his strong muscles that could lift heavy things and fight mighty men. He wasn't used to having a fragile thing around him. But as he watched it, he thought, I think I'm going to keep this baby. I mean, it must have been abandoned. Nobody else is going to want it, so I'll keep it. And the spirits wouldn't get angry about that, right? I mean, they sent the baby to me. So they must want me to keep it. Oh, but maybe just in case the spirits want her back, Big Mo thought he would do something that might trick the spirits. This is something else that people like Big Mo would believe. If you had a baby and you were worried that someday the evil spirits might try to take your baby or your child away from you, they would give them names that were ugly. They would pick names that just weren't really nice names. Maybe you'd hear names, some of the names that you might hear, like, Rebecca. Or, no, I'm not saying that's the names they would give. Those are some nice names that we hear. We hear nice names like Rebecca or Jonathan. But, they wouldn't want to name their baby anything that was too nice because they'd be worried the evil spirits would get jealous and say, oh, your baby has a nice name, I'm going to take it away from you. So what he did was what many people would do. He thought to himself, I'm going to give this baby a name that's not nice. Let me see, what's a good word? I'm going to name it Dookie. Now, you might wonder, what does that mean? In his language, that means sadness. And so he figured, if the evil spirits are watching right now and they see me name the baby Sadness, they're going to think that this baby is it's sad and it makes people sad, and so the evil spirits will think, oh, well then we don't want a baby that makes people sad, and then they'll leave it alone. You see, that's how he had to think about things. But as he watched her, he wasn't feeling sadness at all. What Big Mo was feeling in his heart was, well, I guess you could call it love. He was looking at this baby thinking, I want to keep this baby. I don't think I ever want to give it up. And then something happened that made up his mind for sure. Because as he lay there awkwardly near that baby with his face just a few inches away from her, watching her breathe, the baby's eyes opened. And she saw him, and she smiled, and she reached out a finger and just rested it on his cheek like this. And it was the softest thing that Big Mo had ever felt. Big Mo was used to maybe somebody punching him in his face, or somebody yelling in his face. He wasn't used to somebody gently touching his cheek, and Big Mo's heart was just totally stolen at that point. I'm never going to give her up. I don't care if anybody comes and says they're her mommy or her daddy. She's mine now. I'm not going to give her up. That was what Big Mo was thinking. But yet Big Mo thought, I want to know where she came from. So I'm going to find out. It was morning, and Big Mo did what he did every day. Every day, he got up and he milked his cows. And by now, the baby was wide awake and hungry, so he fed the baby just like he learned to do the night before. And then he got his milk jugs ready to go. Now, most people would need to use like maybe a cart and a wagon, or a cart or a wagon to pull their jugs full of milk to town, because these were heavy jugs. And most of them, if they would carry one, could only carry one in their arms. But Big Mo, well, he wasn't called Big Mo for no reason, you know. He was strong. Big Mo would usually take 2 jugs full of milk and throw one up on each shoulder and just carry it right down the hill all the way to town. But now he had something else to carry, a baby. And Big Mo had never tried to carry a baby before, not to go any kind of distance. He thought, how do the mommies that I see in town carry these babies? Well, sometimes they're carrying things on their head, but do they ever? No, they never put the baby on their head. That would not be a good idea. Do they? Oh, they wrap. Oh, yeah, because they have. See, the women in India, they wear these long flowing robes, and they have lots of folds of cloth, and so they kind of tuck the baby into a fold. They snug it up, and then the baby's held right in there. But Big Mo didn't wear that kind of clothing. Big Mo would typically just have kind of a long piece of cloth he would wrap around his middle, and then he would just kind of tie a knot in it, and that would be it. Looked at it, didn't look like he could really stuff the baby down in there. That wouldn't be good either. But Big Mo was creative. Big Mo realized that if he took a pole and he put it through the handles of the 2 milk jugs and he got underneath it and grabbed the baby in his arms and then carefully stood up balancing it, keeping his muscular arms raised up like this, he could balance those 2 jugs on his shoulders and carry the baby all the way down the hill. And that's what he did. He got to town and people started to laugh. Because one thing you never expected to see was Big Mo carrying a baby. The people laughed and laughed. Oh, Big Mo, where do you get that baby? What? You will find a baby in the bushes when you're milking your cows? Ha 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 ha! Big Mo, how are you going to fight someone with a baby, huh? You cannot do that. But Big Mo, it didn't bother him because he was proud of this baby. He was in love with this baby. And Big Mo wasn't going to let somebody laughing at him make him give up this baby. No, no, no. But each person he met, he asked, Have you heard of perhaps a funeral? Was there another mother that was burned and the baby was, oh, I don't know, maybe like taken or like a pack of dogs? And nobody had heard of any other funerals of a mother. A few people did say, oh, yes, there was funeral, but it was just a man who died of fever. He died, he was burned, but no baby, no mama. Big Mo didn't know what to do, so he figured he would go and ask the charm doctor. So he went to the charm doctor's hut, which was on the edge of the town, and it was the stinkiest, ugliest old place. There were lots of pieces of dead animals nailed to the walls, and there was bones lying in the backyard, and old pieces of junk. And as he made his way in, he thought to himself, I kind of don't feel right bringing baby Dookie into this place. But he came and he clapped his hands to knock like they do, and the charm doctor was inside the hut, and he stuck his head out. Yes, what do you want? I'm wondering if you know where this baby might have come from, like if there was a funeral of a mother. No, I would know. If anyone would know, it would be me. There was no mother funeral. I don't know where that baby came from. Go away. Someone left. The only person he could think of to still ask. My microphone dead? No, there we go. The only person he could think of to still ask was the leader of the village headman. And so he went to the village headman and he told him the story as well. And when he was done telling the story, the village headman looked at him and said, Mo, I can tell you are very much fond of this baby. And I think this baby is safe with you. Since we cannot find where the baby came from, you keep it, Mo. You be gentle. Mo, you are a big, strong man with big muscles. This is a fragile little baby. I would recommend to you, Big Mo, that you maybe do not drink the rice whiskey anymore, because you sometimes get angry when you drink. And Big Mo had no problem with that. Oh, no, I will not. I will stop drinking the rice whiskey entirely. I will keep this baby safe. And as Big Mo walked back home, I'll tell you, he felt like $1 million. He had never felt so happy in his life to know this baby was his. Nobody could take it from him now. The village leader had said it was his. It was his. he got back up to the house, he fed the baby again, he wrapped it up for its nap. And then he went out to check on the cows. His friend, kind of his hired servant, Kola, we met him yesterday. Kola had had the cows out all day, had been feeding them, had been helping them go through the grass pastures and eat all the grass they needed to turn into milk. He brought them back now, and Big Mo went to check on them, and as he was watching them and checking on them, he thought he heard a little noise, and he listened. Could it be a baby crying? No, it's not a baby crying. But then he thought, no, but I hear something moving, or I'll go check. Big Mo wanted to be sure, so he went back to the house, and the first thing he noticed was that the little gate that he had put in front of his door to make sure that no animals would come in to the hut while he was gone was knocked over. And the second thing he noticed when he stepped inside the hut was the baby was not there. He looked around. He looked, okay, I put her right there. She must, no, maybe I put her, no, I didn't put her here, I put her there. Did an animal? No, an animal couldn't have knocked that gate down. It's too strong and heavy. What could have done this? And as he turned around, wondering what might have happened, he looked out through the door, and there, on the side of the hill, the path running down towards the village, he could see a figure running fast. And it seemed to have something in its arms. And before you can say anything further, Big Mo started to run. And we'll find out what happens.